Hello everyone, welcome back to Adobe Live. Today is Wednesday, which means we are doing the 90-minute masterclass with the one and only Tim Möbest, the wizard behind all of these Adobe Livestream productions. So if you've ever sent something to the cloud, that's where Tim is, in the cloud. How you doing, Tim?
It's great up here. I can see your house from here. Look at that. Right there. Yes, I am, as always, thrilled, excited, over the moon and in the cloud to join you for another crash course. And I'm really excited to see what you will be showing us today.
Right, yeah. So, we're going to flip those tables. I'm going to flip it back to you. So yeah, we're going through After Effects, right? And some key principles for some Chroma and backgrounds and all sorts. So yeah, that's going to be fun. If you want to come and join us in the chat and the community, then make sure you head over to behance.net. That's where we'll be monitoring the chat. We've already got plenty of people there. Good afternoon or good evening or even good morning, depending where you are. Tony's in the chat. Hello, Tony. How you doing? Sean and Graffly Art, Sandrine, Jack, and Gareth, and some other people scrolling through. Angus, Stefan, and some other people. Oliver, hello, and to Linda and other people. Come and join us over on Behance if you want to get your questions answered. Likewise, carry on watching wherever you may be watching this, and enjoy this soothing 90 minutes learning through some principles of After Effects, chroma keying, and all sorts.
I hope someone is watching this on their smart fridge. I always wanted to be on one.
Oh yeah, I've never actually seen one of those in person, but I've definitely seen plenty of mock-ups and CES sort of reviews featuring them. Did they exist?
They're always broken. All right. Anyway, let's do some After Effects. Yes, because that's why we are here today. I do just need to replace my mouse because that was running out of battery. There we are. That's better. Cool. So, as always, I will be showing you some cool things, tips, tricks, best practices in After Effects today. And it's going to be all about removing backgrounds, using masks, using Rotobrush, using Chroma keying. And we will, of course, have a look at my favorite footage from Adobe stock and even one that's not from Adobe stock.
Okay.
So yes, should we just jump right in?
Let's jump into it, yeah.
All right. So let's have a look at the footage which I have brought with me today.
Hello, we know who that is.
No idea what you're talking about. We have Tony, of course. Right. Ooh. We have some videos like this, and we'll have a bit of this, and we'll take a look at that.
Is that still Tony, maybe?
Yeah, definitely, yes, in his earlier careers.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, he's
before
lived
he
1,000 lives, that man.
Lighthouse keeper. We have a photo and some more photos and so on. And we will surely take a look at some of them during the duration of this stream, depending on how many we go through. Right. Most of them, apart from, well, maybe this one, you, of course, can find on Adobe stock, and even better, for free. So if you want to join along, you can find them and, yeah, download them for free, tag along, see how you can achieve the same results, maybe, or even better ones than I can. Who knows? We'll see. And we'll start, of course, by opening After Effects. And I haven't opened it right now because I wanted to show how fast and quick it's opening. Back in the days, it took like 40 seconds. Nowadays, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3. Oops, already done.
Oh,
right?
Fast Effects. There we go.
Fast Effects. Faster Effects. Yes. All right. So, dear. We've talked about getting paid by the pun earlier before the stream started.
We've got 90 minutes. Let's try and get to maybe 50.
Oh no, how about no? Right. This is quite random. No, it isn't. It's perfectly reasonable. All right, so I will start by where should we start? I feel like we should start with this. Let's start with something nice and simple. By the way, you do need some very rudimentary After Effects knowledge. So you need to know what a layer is, you need to know what transparency is and how it works to understand this, because if I were to explain everything in After Effects, we wouldn't get to the fun part. So some After Effects knowledge is required, but not too much. And I will do my best to explain all the fun bits.
Likewise, if you're watching this on replay and you are a little bit lost, we've got plenty of streams. We've done a few After Effects masterclass crash courses before. You've done some extra ones, I believe, as well. There's plenty of stuff. You can click through and search, and hopefully that will get you up to speed. And if you have paused it and you've just returned, welcome back. Here we are.
Right. So I'm not going to go over the composition settings. I would just assume that you all know this. Right. I have created a composition, and we will drag in some images, such as this one. And I'm just going to scale that down a tiny bit. And what I do like about this image, of course, from Adobe stock, if you want to find that image, you can just search for this number. Just type it in, you will find it. And I really like this image. However, the background is rather boring. And since today's topic is removing the backgrounds, or rather replacing them, I thought we should do exactly that. And I have found another background, which I like, which is this one. I think that's much more exciting. And I would like to replace this background with the new one. So how can we do that? First of all, I'm going to scale that down so it fits.
We've already got some requests to put Tony and the floating turtle in one composition. Followed up with, how about Tony riding the floating turtle?
We'll see about that.
We'll see what happens.
Okay. Right.
I think, Tony, you're going to be featured a lot in this stream, by the way. Whether you signed a model release form or not, we know that we've got your permission.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. So let's move this layer into the background so we don't see it. And now let's see if we can cut out this turtle. The easiest way, of course, to do it, if we can just zoom in for a moment, is we can, take the pen tool. Literally, I'm going to take my pen. And now just, sit here and just spend some time, have some nice music playing. So how was your day, Joe?
It was all right. I was actually just saying I dropped Ellie off at the airport this morning. Took about 20 minutes, 15 minutes to get there. About an hour and a half to get back. So, good. We love a bit of traffic. That's, if I had someone driving me, I could do this in the car. I could just sit in the back and just trace around with a pen.
And this is a very relaxing. I'm sorry, not it off. Yeah, this is great, but this is taking way too much time, and I'd rather not. So let's not do that. Instead, just gonna get rid of that mask. There we go. Don't need that. Instead, let's do something more fun and something that's much quicker than just having to manually trace around the whole turtle like thing. Right. So let's instead create a rough mask. So I'm just gonna do this and that. And I realize this mask has an awful color, so let's just change it to something that's more visible, like red. Yeah, that's better.
We've got more suggestions. They are just compounding in interest here. We've got a prehistoric turtle floating in space. With Tony, of course.
Yeah.
Turtles, they are quite prehistoric looking, aren't they? Like, they're animals that feel like they've not really developed far from where they started from.
Some of them are prehistoric.
Yeah, it's that's true actually. They live for a very long time.
Definitely.
And what have we got here from Yulia? Tony in a Triton costume, riding the turtle in the underwater scene, singing Under the Sea. Okay, we'll need to get some audio going for that one if we're gonna jump on board.
I do have a copyright-free version of Under the Sea, which I happened to play during the German stream earlier today, since it also was underwater themed, but I don't have the license to play it here. Sorry.
I see.
Sorry. Right, so let's get cracking with this, because otherwise we will lose time, and I would rather show you much more effects than just this. So what I've done is I have masked out very roughly, as you can see, this turtle. And while this is, of course, this is a stellar mask, as you can all see, it's like very detailed, especially around the legs, fins, or whatever. I think we can all agree this is not peak masking. So instead, let's refine that mask. Let's start out by going into here and playing with these 3 sliders. Feathering. Well, actually just 2. Feather and expansion. We don't really care about opacity since our turtle is supposed to be fully opaque. We can, first of all, expand the mask like this. And we can feather it also, if we wanted to. And sometimes, you know, that can already be enough for you. If, for example, the background happens to match the foreground, sometimes, sometimes.
Yeah, gets you part of the way there. At least you can, you know, scamp it out and see.
Just want to scale that down. No, if it's just sitting here, the turtle could be enough. But, of course, not enough for us today. So let's not do that. Let's undo. Instead, I will also, by the way, undo the feathering. Instead, let's go on to the effects and presets, which is up here. If you don't see that, of course, go to Window and Effects and Presets, or Command 5, apparently. And in there, we have a section called Keying. Look at that. And if we check this out, we will see the so-called inner/outer key. And I think this is probably the first time you have ever seen or noticed or used this effect, so let's see what it does.
Well, this is the conundrum you have when you enter the house. Is this my front door key or is this my porch key?
Okay. So what the inner/outer key does is it looks at the mask, and it actually is sort of a bit like refine edge. If I zoom in, if I play with the slider, you will see. Just takes a moment. There we go. It's sort of magically, even if I take away this mask, looks like I've missed a bit of the turtle. There you go. It's like shrink wrap. You can see there's this part. And if I go closer, you will see this line stops at the turtle. And the reason why it wasn't quite working is because I was still masking out this part. So the mask is still active, as in down here. It's still set to add. If we take that away, you will notice suddenly also the outer parts become visible again, because this effect goes in both directions. It searches outside of the mask and it searches inside of the mask. So actually it doesn't matter if we cross over the turtle slightly bit. It's fine. It's all right.
Yep.
Right, so let's have a look at some of the options which we do have in here. First of all, I've already made some changes to the radius, which is over here. This just means how far is this effect looking away from the edge of the mask. If it's too small, you may miss some parts like this. Watch this. If I set it too low, you will see it's not searching far enough. But if it's too large, you might introduce some transparency where you actually don't want any transparency in your object.
So a little bit like the, if you're coming from Photoshop, the smart filter for...
Smart radius.
Smart radius, yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. So you do want to be a bit careful how you mask it, but as you can see, this mask is super duper rough. And it doesn't care too much if you are over the edge. Like I said, you can go over here and probably, not too far, of course. Like I said, be careful with the radius, but you can see it's touching the edge and it doesn't matter. This works best if the object is clearly separated from the background. As you can see in this one, if I disable the effect, the background is mostly blue, so I'm fine. If it's more busy, then you might need to add some tweaks and changes to that effect to fully get the object or person or whatever you want to mask out removed from the background. What if, however, your object has maybe a hole? Maybe you're trying to mask out a person, and the person is doing this. Then you see you would have this hole in here. You would have to stamp that out. How do you do that? Well, it turns out we do have some cleanup slots here, and quite a lot, a hit, where we can either add or remove something from the background. So let's say we have a hole inside the turtle, then we could go in here, specify that mask, and then it will either be stamped out or protected from being stamped out. We're quite lucky, we don't have that here. This is quite a solid turtle, so we're good to go. All right.
Solid turtle.
Yeah.
Big fan of that.
That's my nickname in high school. Okie doke. So now we have our turtle mask. We've removed the background. Now we can take that, and we can also scale it down just a touch. There we go. And if we wanted to, we can animate that. Maybe just place some puppet warp pins on top, like that. And then we could do a bit of this. There we go. And the head. And then, and so on, right? You can just have some fun with that. Right. And then we could move that and do everything we want to this turtle. Right. So this is already our very first removal of a background. Isn't that exciting? Yeah. Any questions so far?
No, I think this is working pretty good. Yeah, we've got plenty more recommendations coming in. We've got chats of singing SpongeBob SquarePants theme tune. There is one pun in here from Anika, and I'm waiting for the right moment to share it, because I laughed very hard in my head at that.
That right moment might be now, because we're about to leave this scene.
Ah, I see. Okay.
I see. What's that? Oh dear. Do you know the pirate's favorite letter?
Ah.
You would think that, but actually his first love was the 7 C's.
Right, I see. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
It's Wednesday, everyone.
Yep. It's not getting any better. Promise you that. Right. So let's have a look quickly at the next effect before this gets out of hand. And let's go with, I suppose, that one. So we have this wonderful, I guess we can add this person to the underwater background if we want to. So we have this wonderful video from Adobe stock, and I would like to remove the background of this video. And you will notice, unlike our turtle, this is a moving image, aka a movie, film, video, right? So we could, if we wanted to, draw a mask and animate that mask and use the inner outer key effect. But I don't really feel like masking and animating. That's like, that takes ages. No. So let's not do that. Instead, we realize, look at that very uniform and evenly lit background. It's almost like it's laughing us in the face and saying, "Key me." If backgrounds could talk, I don't know. I'm sure that's what this would sound like. So I'm going to do exactly that. Let's drag that in and let's key it out. All right. I will actually do... Oh, no, yeah, I guess we can scale it down also. Whoop. There you go. Just don't want to waste too much space, so we can hopefully... No, I don't want to puppet warp it. Thank you very much. How about right there? Yes, perfect. All right, so let's see what we can do. Turns out this keying category is the perfect start. First, I'm going to remove that puppet effect. Don't want that. Let's have a look what we can do. There are a couple of options in there, and they all have this weird block icon in front of them. Which, if you don't know what that means, that's the bit depth of each effect. So this one supports 32-bit, the color range only supports 8-bit, this one does 16. For us right now, I think this should be an 8-bit file, so it doesn't really matter. However, if you're working with like professionally shot footage, like on a movie, you might have more bit depth than just 8. Especially if you're working with color grading, then 8 is quite rare to be worked with. So it sometimes can be quite important to check if your effect actually supports the bit depth. Otherwise, you could run into color issues and
That's
lose
actually
color fidelity.
Really good tip to know. I didn't realize that the bit depth on these effects was relevant to the source footage. I actually thought it was more a case of like a legacy format. So yeah, that's actually really
yes, also because some effects are quite old. I think even the obsolete ones, they should, some of them are also 32-bit, but lots of them, lots of them don't support the full 32 bits. And I think you will also see the color key only has 16 bits. So we usually don't use it anymore. Let's stick with keying.
I guess a rule of thumb for people, most consumer level cameras do record in 8-bit. These days 10-bit is actually becoming very popular, which if you ever find that you struggle to play back your footage on a machine that's maybe only like a 2-year-old machine, there's a good chance that your footage could be 10-bit, which is great for color, but in this case, you have to be specific in your plugins.
And even if you're working with 8-bit footage, it can be advantageous to use higher bitrate effects because color grading can introduce subtle differences. Especially if you're working with dark footage, you can introduce banding if you're not careful. So, but anyway, that's maybe for a different stream working with color grading. That could also be a fun one. For now, let's stick with this. So we have, I don't know how many, 10? I don't know, 5, 2, 10 effects. And now which one should we choose? A couple of them you may already know, like Keylight. That's the most common one. We will have a look at that in just a moment. But I would also like to have a look at some of the other ones which are in there. Such as, let's just pick a random one. Oh, I don't know. How about, oh yes, this one. Perfect. Thank you. Or we can also start with the color range. It doesn't really matter. In here, we now get this effect. Right? And almost all of them have some way where you can sample a color because After Effects by default usually doesn't know what you would like to remove. Is it the red t-shirt or is it the cyan background? In this case, of course, it's the background. So let's click. There we are. Okay.
This is a good point to reference actually. So Sean's questioned, when you key, does it key the whole video or does it key the composition size? And I think this preview is kind of highlighting that it's the video layer. That it's
Effects are almost always, and the reason I say almost always, because of course there are exceptions, limited to the footage size. In this example, it is this aspect ratio, which, like Joe said, you can also see reflected here. But since you've asked the question, as soon as you are working with compositions and you have a look at this button, which of course doesn't exist since this isn't a composition, then this whole idea of being limited to footage boundaries goes straight out of the window. But maybe that's a different stream yet again.
Yeah.
So let's just stick with the keying part. Okay. Yep. So I have selected the key color, which usually I do quite close to the subject to ensure best keying. And I can add another one. And there we are. We are almost there. I can play with the fuzziness. And you can also see the preview up here. White is the part which stays. Black is getting removed. And you can just play around until you hopefully are ending up with something that looks a bit like this. And we can see we have now successfully removed the background. You will have noticed
pretty well.
The stream isn't over yet. This looks pretty good, but we still have about an hour left. So what could I possibly be talking about in the next hour? Well, unfortunately, let's just get rid of this effect again. Unfortunately, our green screen, which is, well, this is more like a cyan screen, but bear with me. Our green screen, our chroma key usually isn't that perfect, especially if we haven't shot this in evenly lit studio with very good lighting. Maybe you are just working in an office that has been converted to a studio owned by a big media company somewhere in Munich. And maybe you haven't had that much time to properly light the green screen, and you see some dust is on it, some dirt, and the lighting is not very even. I don't know, just could be anything. Could be anyone. And maybe you still want to key that out. But you're
trying to work out if this is a dig at yourself, Tim, or a passive-aggressive comment elsewhere.
No, this is certainly myself. I could have spent more time to light this properly. I do have to say that myself. Right, so how can we deal with that? Because this, of course, super easy to key out. That footage, however, not so much. You will see in a moment. So let's get that in here. Move that over to the side. And let's see what we can do. First of all, we can create so-called garbage masks. And looking at this footage, I would draw garbage masks all over. No. Garbage mask just means you can remove something that shouldn't be there in the first place. Like, I don't know, a boom mic sticking in, right? You obviously never want that boom mic in there. You can just draw a mask around it and take that away. Or maybe some, like a light, a video light is sticking into the frame and you want to remove that. That can often be a great way for you to get started, because if I look at this footage, Tony is never touching this area up here. So should we really spend all the time refining the key and properties to get rid of that? Or should we just mask that away in the first place?
Yeah.
I feel like we can just mask it and focus on the area down here. And luckily that's quite easy. As we all know, just take the pen tool and draw a very rough mask around this area. There we go. And now we can take away this part where Tony never goes in the first place. Just checking. Let's see. I think this is about the point where it's the farthest to the left. Yep, there we are. So we can go comfortably over here. And maybe even just introduce another point. There we are. And immediately we have, hopefully, made it much easier for us to key that out. And I have left the left part open because I think at some point he steps into frame. Yeah, which is of course now just off frame. I have to move that around. Let's see. So he goes here and goes in. Oop, that's quite close. There we are. All right. So let's get rid of the green now. First of all, I do notice that the color balance is quite off. So I'm just going to use Lumetri to correct for that. I assume this is white. Well, that's better. Before, after. This doesn't really have to do anything with keying, of course. And now let's go ahead and try some keys. And for this one, I will try the linear color key as opposed to the color range, because the linear color key can deal with different shades of green in this case, maybe 50, I don't know, much better than the color range can do. You will see it's quite similar. Mm-hmm. You select your green color. You can also do it over here if you want. But immediately you will see why I said this one is more difficult, because it notices, oh no, it's also trying to move the foreground. Well, that's not good. So we can go ahead and try to remove some of that color, but that doesn't really work. It's like, how can we fix that? Because obviously
I just question, why is this? Is this because it's finding tones of green within the image that is making up the part of Tony?
Yes, essentially. We have different algorithms in here, and essentially what it's doing, it's going, how far is this color away from green?
I see.
We have different options
of course,
here. We can,
green being 1/3 of the light.
Yeah, black is
RGB
quite
pixels.
Quite close to that. So But I'm using this effect because we can now go ahead and tweak some of the results. First of all, we can change the matching tolerance and the softness. I will turn everything down to 0%. And now we can slowly, by holding Command, increase the tolerance to a point where hopefully we don't destroy too much of Tony's face. Like this. Much better already. And of course, we want to remove some of that harsh edge, because if we look here, we can see it's quite pixelated. So we will just play with the softness until we go about here, maybe. Back and forth. Yep, I think that's quite good. All right. Now, what if you can't fully mask out the object? We can see if I just remove the background and replace that with a white solid, because that will probably be a good way for us to see any masking defects. You'll see we have some issues in Tony's shirt. Like the hair is quite good. We will fix that, of course. But you see in the beard we do have some background showing through, and in the shirt. So how can we fix that? It turns out there are some effects in After Effects, who would have thought, to help us with cleaning up that mask. And one of them I would like to highlight is the matte choker, not to be confused with the simple matte choker. That's different. Why? Maybe we'll get to that. Immediately, you see something is happening. First of all, that blotchiness in the center is gone, but we also have reduced the quality of the edge, which is not great. So let's have a look at those values, what they do, and how we can tweak them to hopefully achieve a much better edge and more solid inner part of the mask. I will first of all, again, turn down everything we don't want. Right about here, and then
is there a benefit to doing one first then the other, or can you do it either way around?
Usually effects are built in a way that you start with the values that are at the top and then work your way down. This is the same for this one. You can see some have 1, others have a 2, because there are 2 stages to this effect. And of course, some have preset values punched in, which will work for most footage types. However, to really see what each every setting is doing, I like to just take them all down and reintroduce them one by one, because I feel like this is then much clearer what they do. For example, we can have a look at the geometric softness. Yeah, great word. Nobody knows what it is, but as soon as I play with it, I think we all can see. Maybe I can just go to the hair. I think we all see, especially if you look at the beard, what's happening.
Yep.
There we go.
It's going more from shapiness to blobbiness.
That's exactly
this
it.
Is the shapy blobby slider. Yesterday we had the swoopy swoop.
Swoopy
today
swoop.
we got the shapy blobby.
Shapy blobby. Right. Okay. So this one is indeed removing any jagged edges and smoothing them out, but not feathering them, which is quite important. You can see the edge is still super duper sharp. So it's just smoothing it out, rounding it off. Now we can go ahead and play with the second slider, which is the choke. It either introduces or removes, aka fills in any edges. So this is how, let's say you have some holes in the beard, which we had just before. If I disable this again, you can see there are some holes in there. We can fill those in by adding in a negative choke amount. Not too much, just a bit. Right about that, I would say. And immediately we can see our effect is looking much better. Don't pay attention too much to the green around. We will have another effect to fix that in just a moment. But I would say now we have a much better key than before. If we compare this, you will see See some blotchiness. And that's gone. Hey. Right.
Nice.
So let's deal with the green. Oh, that's awful. Luckily, we have a great effect called, I think we need a reverb for that, Advanced Spill Suppressor.
Excellent. I need a reverb button so badly.
Comes in handy anytime. And without even doing anything, look at that. It even removes the green in the beard, which I didn't notice before. Gone.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Right? That
Wow,
easy.
that's that alone is probably a great effect for just tidying up, whichever way that you've keyed something out, because that's the one thing that's always noticeable in a less than professional environment is that you've got this glowiness coming from the green screen.
Yeah.
Amazing.
But now you might be asking yourself, how does it know? How does it know which
Well,
color to remove?
Mask and you shall receive.
Okay. Turns out it has a pretty good idea. There are two modes. There's a standard mode where it's just guessing. Well, I guess it knows. I mean, sorry, After Effects, of course you do know. You're not guessing, you know. But there's also the so-called Ultra setting, which comes not from any Apple-named marketing material, but instead from the Premiere filter. Because if you have a look in Premiere Pro, that is, you will find the Ultra key. And this is where the Ultra is coming from. And if I click on that, you will see it reveals more options. First of all, we can pick the key color, which can, in some cases, if I... Oop, no, not the white. Sorry, I probably have to do that. Up here, you will see this can, if we compare this, well, actually it doesn't do too much, but oh yeah, a bit. No,
A
it's
little bit, yeah.
Standard.
More noticeable in the shadow detail.
Ultra.
Yeah.
I feel it's a bit more accurate because now it actually is using that green. You can define the color, you can play around with the tolerance, you can desaturate and really go in there and fix all the different options you want. This can probably take from minutes to hours, days, weeks, months, and until
Is
you
this
find the right.
potentially quite intensive on your machine as well?
Actually not. If we have a
Going
look
for
at
the
the
ultra.
frame render time, 6 milliseconds. If we go to standard, it's actually it's faster apparently.
Interesting. Yeah,
you go.
okay.
All right. So no, it doesn't do really anything on your machine. Yeah, apparently Ultra is even faster. Who would have thought?
I love how there's no chill between just standard and ultra. It's
All right. And there we are. Now, I think we can all agree the edge, especially like on the beard, that's, I think we have some work to do there. So, while the linear color key, that's great, and we can play with the softness just a bit to hopefully, try to get that right. And we can apply some other effects like the key cleaner, which is also very useful. I think that should be about here, which should be applied, by the way, before the advanced spill suppressor. So the order is key, cleaner, spill suppressor. And you will see now it has introduced some smoothing, which I guess we can, again, tweak. There are different ways to go about that, so we can see the contrast, the strength. We can specify the radius. So I think right about here, maybe. Let's have a look at the beard. Yeah, that looks good. This is a quite useful checkbox. Reduce chatter. If you notice a lot of frizzling and boiling around the edge, you can check that box and that will just calm it down a bit if it's getting too excited. Or sometimes if you have compression artifacts, that can also throw off a keyer if you introduce like some blockiness. So if you see that, could be worth clicking reduce chatter, and that will just calm it down a bit.
That key clean has actually done a great job on like the fuzziness. Like hair is always so difficult.
And we will get to that right now. Because let's have a look at some other options like this. In here, you will notice, or I guess rather than telling you, I'll just show you. How about that? Let's actually create a new project because I feel like that deserves its own, and we can also see the better resolution. So new one, and there we are. Let's try the ultimate weapon of keying. So we have sort of stepped up every time in complexity, and now we will have a look at the granddaddy of key effects, which is Keylight. And I think this also is the most famous. If you ever search on YouTube After Effects chroma keying, you will be sure to see that effect highlighted in the video.
Yeah.
Because everybody just jumps straight to that.
The only one I've ever seen.
Yeah. Everyone just uses that one straight away without actually considering the other ones, which could, as you saw, often achieve a good or maybe even better result with perhaps even faster performance. In this case, look at that, 6 milliseconds again. Who would have thought? Right. Again, we need to tell After Effects which color I would like to remove. And I also always, like I said, try to pick a color that's close to the subject, so I wouldn't go here, so maybe right there. And immediately, you can see the Keylight does a really good job at removing all the green in the background. Let's just add a new solid, white, and you will see we're quite almost there. However, we do have some issues. First of all, we see there is some graininess, and if I play that back, you will see, oh, that's not good. And
yeah, you also thought you wouldn't have noticed that.
No. Yeah. And the second issue is, look at the color of that skirt. If I take it away, it's yellow. Now it's orange.
Yeah.
What happened there? First of all, that's now semi-transparent, because in yellow, believe it or not, there is a lot of green. And Keylight, while being very smart, it tries to remove that that green from the skirt, which of course will not work since that's not transparent. It's opaque. It should be still yellow. So let's see if we can fix that. First of all, we can again play with the tolerance. In this case, it's called gain. So this is sort of like how precise should Keylight be. If you notice, if we turn that down, we see a bit of the background. If we turn that up, you will see that grain in the background is going away. But also we might be increasing transparency in the foreground, which we don't want. So actually, maybe we can just add another image so we can properly see if we're getting too transparent. Could be anything. All right. And you can see, well, that's not good.
Nope.
All right. So, and also the eye apparently is poking right through the mask. That's also slightly unsettling. So let's see what we can do. Let's go back to the effect and check some of the options. And I would like to draw your attention to 3 things. First of all, up here in the view, we can change what we're looking at. Right now, we're looking at the final result. So essentially what we would be rendering out later. But maybe, just maybe, it would be a good idea to check the black and white version, aka what's visible and what's not. So let's have a look at screen matte. You will see everything that's white, just like in Photoshop, that's fully opaque. Everything that's black, that's fully transparent. You can see the skirt is that's gray. The mask also gray, and we see some blotchiness back here. That's not good. So, how would you fix that in Photoshop? Well, I would just use levels and maybe just crank the edges down until everything that's white is white and everything that should be black is black. And that's essentially the same what we're going to do right now. So we can have a look at the screen matte. And we have two sliders. We have clip black and clip white. So if I clip the white, just slide that down, you will notice the foreground is getting whiter and brighter. And if I clip the black...
Like a contrast sort of effect happening.
Exactly. Don't go too far, otherwise you might want to...
Edges.
Otherwise you would flip the image. That's not what we want. So right around here, I would say. And these values, of course, will heavily depend on the kind of footage you have. So don't take these as concrete values. 24 and 71 happens to be the one I'm happy with in this case. And we can check by going back to File Result. And now we do indeed have a fully opaque skirt and a fully opaque mask. However, the colors are still quite off. That's orange. It used to be yellow. And there's a cool trick which you can use to get around that. Either you can work with the composite effect, or if you want to stay in the same effect, you can just go to Replace method and say Source. And there we are. Now it's back. And also the mask was before and after. Come on. After. Yeah, there we go. Just took a second to update. So yeah, that's a super easy way to get back any colors that might have changed along the way. And I feel like if we have a look at the edge, I don't think we have too much green, but yep, just a bit. So I suppose could be a good idea just to get our good friend, the advanced build suppressor, back in there. And there we go.
Immediately, yeah.
Let's check the arm if we're all good. Yep, I do notice there is a bit of edge darkness happening here. So we can go ahead and go into the color correction of the edge. Sometimes if you have like a bit of light wrap, you don't want that. You can go into the edge color correction. Enable that. And then you can, if I just do something extreme, like this, so we can see what's going on. I can play with the softness of the edge to see how far we're going in, and turn down the hardness just a bit. Yeah, around there. Now I can take that extreme setting back down to 0. And I can play perhaps with the brightness and just brighten that up just a touch. Maybe even by just 7 and not 9. And I feel like, yep, before and after. Just a bit. And of course we could play with the contrast. And this again is a setting where you can probably spend ages and refine that. But I would just like to let you know it's there if you need it. But we don't.
I imagine there are many times where you might change something in a small area, zoom out, and then realize you've overdone it in another area. Yeah.
That's why I was quite cautious with the settings. Didn't do too much. You can see, like, yeah, because of the lighting, there is some dark edges over here. And we can spend some time. We can also go with a key cleaner and clean the key first and then do the spill suppression. Also, we could sample it again instead of just relying on the green one. So let's just...
I guess it's also worth pointing out that when you're working with moving video, there is a lot of forgiveness to when things aren't perfect, because things will be in motion. Whereas if it was a static image and you're looking at it in print, you can stop and study every single frame.
Yeah, definitely. All right. I think I'm quite happy with that. So let's go on over to the next one. We're going to increase the difficulty once again. So first, we have looked at perfectly lit cyan screens, chroma keys. Then we have introduced some imperfections. And finally, some very difficult to key out colors, although we've noticed not so difficult if you know the trick. But now, let's have a look at some effects where it might be impossible to key it out using traditional effects, such as this one. why I really like this footage, because
Interesting.
he's desperately trying not to laugh. If you look, and
Yeah.
right about now, don't laugh, you're getting paid for this. Right? And also maybe this one. Oh, no, not that one. Yeah, this one. Because you will notice we have anything but a solid background. The camera's moving and many things are happening. Finger guns, there we are. Pew, yeah. Wow. And spin. Oh yeah, there we go. So
we've also lost like the beginning bit. We've cropped off a bit of the head.
Yeah,
a bit later, we cropped off some of the feet.
It's a thing.
Okay, tricky one.
We probably can't recover that head. That's not going to happen, since that would require more work. But we can see what we can do by removing the background. Okay, let's start with this effect. Oh, not effect.
Sean's saying, I remember when this was Tim waiting for a new chair.
Yeah. Oh, I still have it somewhere. Just see. Well, same t-shirt, actually. Who would have thought? Okay. So let's create a new comp. Let's hide all that. And let's have a look. I've picked this footage, first of all, because it was free. But second of all, because you would think that this would be another case of just removing the background using the effects. We're going, no, that's quite clean, right?
Yeah.
We can clearly see the edge. I mean, okay, we're fine. We do have some things going on down here, but I'm sure that could be dealt with a mask. So why don't we try that again? Right? It ought to be easy. How about color range? There we go. And
I mean, just on its I was going to say, just the way it looks as standard with a black t-shirt, a white wall, that is the inverse of the mask you're looking to make.
Yeah, right? So it should be easy.
But
So,
but it's not.
well, that's what we can try now with the, no. I mean, up here it sort of works, but down here, oh, there. Maybe just try the plus. Not really. I mean, sort of works, but also, no. Keylight maybe, because that just worked brilliantly. White? Yeah, not really, no. Okay, I don't know what. Linear color key, how about that? No, color range, I think that what it was. No, linear color key. No, not really. So, turns out it's actually quite difficult. Why? Because if we have a look at, for example, the skin, this has a lot of white in it. It's quite difficult to key that out. So instead, we will use a different way to do it. We will use the Rotobrush. So we will tell After Effects what's the foreground, what's the background, and what would we like to keep, and which part of the image we would like to remove. How are we going to do that? Turns out it's actually very easy. We have a look up here. You will see there's a brush, and turns out it's actually already painting on a person, so why don't we use that, shall we?
It's either a very big brush or a very small person.
Or both. Who knows? All right. So, normally, if you click on that, you get a warning. I have already disabled that warning because it was annoying me, because it came every single time. And that warning says, hang on, you can't use the Rotobrush in the composition view. You have to go on the layer view. And the way you do that is you double click the layer. And now you see it has loaded our layer in the layer panel. This sometimes happens on accident if you just double click anything and you suddenly are in this panel like, what's going on? This is the layer view. All right. And we need this to apply, first of all, also painting effects, the brush tool that also works on the layer view, but also our Rotobrush tool. By the way, it does also have, this Rotobrush can be tweaked. If we have a look at the brush settings, we can make some changes to the Rotobrush tool using that panel, apart from hardness. that doesn't work. But the rest can be tweaked with this. However, I don't really care about that too much. We'll just stick with a standard Rotobrush. This one is fine for most occasions and definitely more than capable for us to do it today. So let's...
Sandrine has mentioned the Rotobrush sounds like something from Black & Decker. Definitely a hardware tool.
Yeah.
In fact, actually, my mind went more towards the dentist route at first. It's like, make sure you're Rotobrushing twice a day.
Okay, so first of all, now that we have our Rotobrush selected, you see if we hover over our... If we hover over our image, we can see we get this preview. There we are. Don't know why it disappeared just a moment ago. Probably a graphic glitch. Right, now, if you're colorblind, I'm sorry, but this should be a green icon. If you are colorblind, you can also see there's a plus in the center of the circle. If I hold down the Option key, this turns into a red minus. And now 20 points to whoever could guess how this brush will work. Well, yes. Using green, we paint the foreground. Using red, we'll paint the background. If I want to change the size of the Rotobrush, I hold down Command or Control and click and drag either up and down or left and right. Doesn't matter. I can change.
Can you also use the square bracket keys?
I don't have them on my German keyboard, but as far as the manual goes, I think no. However, like I said, you can work with the brushes panel, which I've just hidden down here, and maybe that would help you. Right, so let's go ahead and mask something. And of course, I've already clicked on some things, and so let's just take that away.
Sean said that you just stole 20 points from us. Offering the points, taking them away.
Yeah, that's how it is. The layer view, called the oopsie view. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's actually do it. So with the Rotobrush 2 selected, I'm just going to click and drag to paint some green lines. And before I actually release it, it might be tempting to do like an outline. So like this. To say like, I want to keep all this. The manual of After Effects, however, recommends not doing that. This can achieve good results, but it's recommended that instead of doing this, you actually draw like a skeleton. So right straight through the center, like this. And then you will select, hopefully, everything you want to select. And this one now is going by the colors based on which I've brushed over. And it tries its very best to guess what I would like to keep and what I would like to remove. In this case, indicated by a magenta outline. And you can see it got some parts like this shirt. Yes, perfect. And some of the ears, the hair, but not the face, and also not the shoes, and part of the exercise board, and the arm, of course. So, what are we supposed to do now? Well, we can just try again and add parts of the image.
It looks like it's done the cutout in the arm as well. I think.
Yeah?
Yep.
Oops, sorry.
Perfect.
Oh.
But not that one.
Hold down Option, Alt. There we go.
Boom. Sandrine's asking, is this the same as the quick selection brush?
It's very
similar.
Similar, yes. Not quite the same because this one, of course, works with motion and it has some Adobe Sensei built in. I've managed to get some part of the background. By the way, another tip, if you happen to go over the edge, unfortunately, like this, like, oh no, it's better to undo than try to use the red subtract brush to get that away again. If you have misclicked somewhere, just better undo Command Z or Control Z.
Yep.
than to try and remove that again.
I imagine as well it could be easier maybe on certain parts of the skin tone where the highlights are hitting maybe and you're being very specific rather than aiming for a bit that's in the shadow.
Furthermore, I've just started painting without actually saying which and where and what and when, because the way the Rotobrush works is you define a base frame, which is, if you just start drawing, this is your new base frame. And based on that base frame, who would have thought, it will propagate throughout the entire footage. So it will take this as a reference and then say, all right, if it moves like this, probably still means to mask it out, yes, and it goes frame by frame throughout the entire footage to hopefully then mask out your object, person, or whatever, based on the base layer. The way that's indicated is, if we have a look down here, not that far, you will see there is this line with arrows and it's pointing in this direction. If I were to have a base frame maybe right here, arrows could point in a different direction going back. But in this case, I've made my first frame the base frame, so it's going on over here. And it's going until it has reached the so-called span of the Rotobrush, which in this case is just the end of the footage. If we don't want that, we can also reduce that. Let's say we only want to use the base frame for 3 seconds. Maybe we want to redraw a base frame after that to maybe something has moved in front of the object or it has changed too much. Then we can reduce that, draw a new base frame here, go again, draw a new base frame maybe, and so on. And that can sometimes be the best way to keep the mask clean, because you will notice, even though our first base frame, and you should really take enough time to properly mask it out, because, like I said, After Effects will use that frame to propagate throughout the footage, so spend enough time. You will notice that it will, at some point, make mistakes. And probably, if I remember to the moments I tested this, probably right here, around the arms, that's where it will make some mistakes. So let's see what we can do. I will just press the play button, and you will see it now is going through the footage, this, and it's trying its very best to keep everything masked. And I would like to point out that this ball was disappearing behind the leg, but when it comes back, it still recognizes it as the mask, which doesn't always work, like we see up here. That's not good. But since we have Rotobrush 2.0, which we can change up here, it's much better than before. So if you have used Rotobrush before, it got a second update, you might just want to try it again. Right. Yeah. Now, what happens if it makes a mistake? Like right here. It should mask out the ball, yet it doesn't. The good thing is, we can just go to the first frame where it makes a mistake. In this case, right here, apparently.
I think it's quite literally the second frame.
Yeah, and just repaint. Oh, not that much.
Yep.
And now this edit will also propagate throughout the frame. And actually, it appears to not like that part for some reason. It worked fine in the test. Oh, mind. Maybe it's not liking me today. But that's okay. We're patient After Effects. I'm sure I've done something wrong.
I'm wondering if changing your brush size, does that make things easier sometimes?
Changing the brush size, of course, sometimes is necessary if we want to edit small. It really doesn't like that part. That's not good. Right. Let's have a look at if we can maybe convince it to make some changes. Because it turns out, first of all, we have a couple of options in our Rotobrush. We have the version. We can switch between 2.0 and 1.0. You might be asking if 2.0 is better in any why would you ever want to use 1.0? Well, it turns out if you're using legacy projects, it will still include 1.0, just for compatibility reasons. And there's no real reason to go back to 1.0 because the only difference is that we have some changes in the, where is it? Propagate section. There we are. Was right below. Shouldn't even have used it. Here, enable classic controls. This is essentially the only difference. So if you want the best of both worlds, of both having the 2.0 and classic controls, you can just click here and enable that. In here, you can define some properties such as how much your object is moving. So if you have a very slow moving object, you probably don't want your Rotobrush to be looking 500 pixels away from the object for motion. You can bring that down. And also, what I feel like, where is it? Hang on. No, it's not there. Sorry. That will be for later. Never mind. You can also change the search radius up here. I was just looking for something different. Don't mind me. Right. Okay. So maybe we can just increase the search radius just a bit to have it out. Let's just say we spent enough time to mask out everything, and we would like to, well, let's just let it run through. Pay no attention to that spot down here. See, it found it again. That's weird. You could probably spend some time just draw that back in. Really,
and you can
like
just
it.
Paint as you go. You don't need to set a keyframe or anything. Yeah,
does it automatically. You will see down here all the edits it has made. There we are.
I see. Yeah.
Go ahead. Just let it play. All right. And now we have masked it out. Here are some helpful buttons which you can use to visualize what it's doing. They are down here. We have the toggle alpha. Right, there we are. That's what I wanted. You can see it did make some mistakes, as predicted, right around the arms. So I would probably go ahead and, with a small brush, paint that back in. Of course, using the red one, not the green one. There we are. And I suppose let's just let that propagate. Yeah, that's better. It actually did remarkably well around the arms up here. Had more issues back when I tried it. Oh well. Maybe it likes this one today.
Flickering on the neck a little bit.
Yeah, we will deal with that in a moment.
Okay, cool.
And don't worry, I have noticed that we do have some halo effects around here. Right. So let's just say we have propagated this throughout the entire duration, which I won't do because this takes some time and we want to do more work anyway, because we have one more piece of footage. Let's say I'm happy with that. Now we can refine that mask because, as you said, we do have some issues. First of all, noticeably, the halo here, and then some flickering, or the proper term is chatter. Maybe you will see where we're going with this. So how can we fix that? We can, and it's not grayed out, we can go in here and say Rotobrush matte and refine that. Ooh, reduce chatter. Look at that. However, that means it might need to re-propagate. If we make some changes, it will have to go through again and work with that. Instead, I will go over here and say freeze. So this will now go through and freeze the the mask, so we can then apply those effects. So it doesn't have to re-propagate constantly and redo all the work we just did over and over and over again. So this takes a while. And to be fair, I probably could have just went with the plus and minus and did help Rotobrush a bit out up here. Fair point. And it's also quite difficult thing to mask.
This is similar in terms of, say, like a pre-render, a little bit.
Yeah, but it sort of like just saves the the mask, so it doesn't have to rethink about where could the edge be.
I see. Yeah.
All right. So, and now we can go ahead and, first of all, we could feather it, which I don't think is a good idea because that's way too smooth. So I'm not going to do that. Maybe just a bit. We can play with the contrast. This is especially good if you have very hard edges. You might want to increase the contrast, but not too much, since you can see it might get pixelated. That's not what we want. So right around, here, maybe. We can shift the edge, and this is important. Let's go ahead over here to the shirt. We can move that inwards or further out. And right around here, I would say, is perhaps, yep, that looks good. Just check the other side. There we are. And we can reduce the chatter. And this should hopefully help out with that flickering. Probably not too much, because that is quite a lot, but yeah, it's doing much better. It's not flickering that much anymore. But yeah, maybe we just really need to go in there and paint it back in. But it's certainly helping, especially if you have like a very static object that's just boiling and flickering all over. Reducing the chatter can often help. And of course, now we can go ahead, we can throw the entire arsenal of the other effects, like the key cleaner, which we just had, which can also reduce chatter, and also the advanced spill suppressor, which probably won't do too much since the background in this case happens to be white. So won't do too much there. Right. Now, what if we have very complex hair? Because as you can see here, the quality of the hair selection is quite looks like someone cut it out with a pair of scissors, and that's not good.
Yeah.
So how can we deal with that? For this, I have picked probably the most difficult shot in the world, because we have a lot of hair. We have quite a busy background and even some moving objects in the background. So I will warn you right now, we won't get this perfect in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. But I would like to show you how you can do it.
Whilst you're setting up for a new one, it's a good point to reference back to a question that was asked a little while ago. Imagine you have something to cut out from a very complicated background, but relatively easy to cut out by hand. Is it possible to turn a vector mask into a Rotobrush, or kind of combine two tools together, or are they distinctly separate?
I mean, the Rotobrush is just another effect. If we have a look at this, you can see it's really just an effect, and nothing would stop us from just combining maybe the in and outer key from, remember, the first example we had with the turtle, and combine that with Rotobrush key. Also, it's actually a good point, because sometimes you can go ahead, if we go back to, let's say, where is it? Oh, let's just re-import it. What the heck? Let's get this one. Sometimes it can be a good idea to use a basic key. Let's just do it like this, and then refine that key. So,
okay.
What do I mean by that?
Double stack, yeah.
We could try to get rid of most of the effect and then just bring back the edge. And I think this one should be in the inside mask. Now you're putting me on the spot. I want to bring back that. Let's just see. Where could edge grow? I think that should be it. Yeah. Yeah, or maybe we use a different effect on this. Or we could use the mask joker. How about that? That's a good idea, Tim. There you go. Matte joker. We could bring that back. zoom in, bring back the edge. What I essentially want to do is I want to key out the basics, crank back the edge, and then just go right ahead and clean that smaller part off. So in multiple layers. Apparently, I'm pretty sure I'm doing something wrong here. Probably have to reduce. There we go. That's what I want to do. We're getting there. Hang on. Yes. Yes, that's it. Oh, that took me a while. All right. So what I meant to do was I can clean the basic parts like this and then use another instance of Keylight to also get rid of this part, which is like right next to the person or object you want to clean. So multiple instances of keying effects can sometimes work in favor. Also, if you have multiple colors you want to remove, let's say some part is green, some part is blue, you can mask out the blue one and key out the green and then the other way around. Can sometimes happen.
Likewise, I imagine if you had multiple subjects and they're in, different lighting parts of a frame.
Definitely.
I do not envy anyone who has the task of doing that, but at least you have the tools available to you.
I know. All right. Okay. Now, as our final video example, we have this wonderful footage from Adobe stock once again. And this one has, as we can see, quite a lot of hair. Let's just do a sanity check. Will Keylight work? Probably not, because this is certainly anything but a uniform color. So let's try the Rotobrush once again by painting. Oh, there we go. Yes. Use it in the layer panel.
Open the oopsie mode.
In the oopsie mode. Great. Right. Zoom out. And now actually let's start with a frame that's not at the beginning. How about right here? Try to pick a frame that's clean, doesn't have too much motion blur, and doesn't have any objects in front of you, the one you want to cut out. That's always a good point. And that Rotobrush is way too small. Right. So how about like this? Yeah, quite good. Yes. Yeah, okay. Now, let's see what the mask says. And I think we can all agree that's not really capturing all the fine detail. So what if we could somehow refine that edge? Wouldn't that be great? All right, let's just bring it back to where we were. And now let's have a long press on the Rotobrush tool and discover the Refine Edge tool. Magic. And now, just like in Photoshop, we can, with a large brush, click and drag over the hair.
Ooh.
And really go in and find all the hair. And by the way, since we have started in the middle of the composition, you will now see that these arrows are pointing in that direction, which means these frames over here will be based on our base frame. And if we don't want that, we can always crop that in. And now it wouldn't propagate in that direction. But I do want that in this case, but maybe not for 20 seconds. So I will just bring down the span to a couple of seconds because we only want to demonstrate that. And now we just have to cross our fingers, play the footage, and you will see After Effects is doing its very best to also warp that area. You can see it's moving around. And if we see something where it should be, we can always, like I said, go back, click. And sometimes if you are too far away, it might just take a second to propagate. Like I said, if I were to try to do this, it will throw me an error like, oh no, you've tried to rotor something where the After Effects engine wasn't quite ready with rendering, indicated by this green line. So if I try to do something over here, it would have to propagate first, and then you can edit.
I see. Got you.
So now I have to wait. and you will see it will go ahead and propagate.
And this is just happening in the background.
Yeah, I don't have to do
After
anything.
you press play, or you don't have to do anything. Okay.
If I press play, it's happening live. If I just move my cursor to another frame, it will propagate from the base frame to there, and then you can see it's trying its very
how
best.
That's worked. Wow.
There we go. And the rest, and I think that should be it. Yep, I've definitely missed some areas over here, but I think we should rather focus on maybe cleaning up that edge than catching every last bit of hair. So I'm sure you know that we can now spend some time to do that manually. And of course, I do realize we have just looked at a tiny portion of the entire footage, and this would take much longer in real time, do you know? But
yep.
You don't want to sit here and watch me wait for this progress bar to fill.
Yeah.
Okay, now I would like to draw your attention to these buttons here, which are essentially your best friend in judging the quality of your roto work. We first of all have the X-ray option, which is the one we're looking at right now. So it both has the outline and also the refine edge. We can disable that to get this version. And I think we can all agree, nice, but not as helpful as the other view we just had. So I do like this X-ray view where you can clearly see what's happening. But if you don't want it, that's fine. You can also disable the outline like this. You can play with the alpha. See if you rather have this and that and this and this and that. And yeah, you can also have an overlay if you prefer that. You can change the color of the overlay. Maybe you want white. Who knows? Actually, a good point. Now we can clearly see if we have done a good job. And I think, surprisingly, yeah, that's good. So yeah, we can really change the way it looks. However, this is all just in the layer view. If we go back, you can see this is all gone, and we're just looking at the pure final output of our Rotobrush. And if we go outside, you will notice it's gone. It's only affected the small part which we were just working on. If I go further, you will see it will come back. There we are. Yeah. So only the part which we've just rendered. And now, just like last time, we can go ahead and try the advanced suppressor. Probably doesn't do too much since there isn't too much spill going on in the first place. Well, not really any, to be fair. We can go ahead and try the key cleaner, which also probably won't do too much. But we can reduce chatter. Oh, doesn't do too much. We can. You know what? I will do one thing. I will freeze this Rotobrush, so we don't have to do it all over again. So select that Rotobrush. Why is the freeze button not showing up? No, seriously, why is it not showing up? Huh? I'm sure I'm doing something wrong. I'm sure it's me, After Effects. I'm very sorry. I am in the oopsie view, aren't I? Yeah, I am.
Yep.
Why are you not showing up? That's not supposed to happen. View, how about we try Rotobrush? Well, that would fix it.
There we go.
Was in the wrong view. I know, it was you. It was me, After Effects. It wasn't you, sorry. Right. So there it is, a freeze button. It's just freaked out for a moment. Right, let's freeze that for a second. Hopefully it shouldn't take too long. Oh, it does take a long time. Oh dear.
It's probably worth just talking about how this could be used. Because obviously this, if you were to try and key this scene out perfectly, you really don't have the best footage to start with.
No.
So you'd be having a word with your filming department and say, look, this isn't good enough. But I can imagine this kind of tool being used if you wanted to, say, relight a scene or color or grade maybe just your subject rather than the actual overall scene. Because you can rotobrush something out of the clip, but still keep the original clip as an underlying layer. It doesn't mean you have to put it over a new background.
And that was actually, I wanted to show this with the astronaut clip, but since, I mean, essentially we would do the same thing, but what I want to do is I want to track in something and make the astronaut just pop through. I guess we can sort of demonstrate that with this. effect as well. I can just duplicate that, remove the effects from, actually, that was the wrong one. Let's try that again. I want to remove the effects from this one, put that one to the bottom. So now we have our background and our foreground. And now we can put something between, such as, I don't know, some text. And let's scale that up and put that, sandwich that between the layers. And now we see we could put something.
Yeah, brilliant.
Between. And this can be quite a common effect. Remember, you don't have to just rotate out a person. It could also be, if you're like shooting a skyline, you could rotate out the buildings and put some text behind the buildings into the sky. Really do anything you want. And like I said, I only want to show you this because you don't have to be scared, even if the edge is not perfectly sharp. You can see it's actually working better than in my my test. I have missed some hair apparently here, but that would be just super easy. Actually, yeah, good point. Let's say you have frozen the Rotobrush work and you want to get back in. You realize, oh no, I've missed something. How do you do that? Well, you go back into the Oopsie view and the layer view if you're just joining, and you then have to unfreeze. If you try to paint over, let's just try that right now, you will see I just had, I'm not sure why is it going away all the time. My cursor is not liking me. That just was there. Did you see that? Just blink for a moment.
Is your caps lock on?
No.
No.
That's odd. It's not supposed to. There we go. There it is. But it's going away for some reason. Thank you, After Effects. But there you can see it now. It says, "Oh no, Tim, you can't do. I'm afraid you can't do that, Tim." So what you would have to do is you have to unfreeze, and then you can go back in and say, "Yes, do want to refine that."
Yeah.
There we are. And now I do have the hair back. And then I could freeze it again, which I won't do because, like I said, this will take some time. Oh, you know what? Let's just do it. I can talk about it anyway. And you will see it will now try to propagate based on that frame, which we just made, in the direction. Apparently it's starting backwards. All right. And then you've made the change, you can refreeze it, and then edit it in any way or shape you prefer. Right. And I think that is, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about today. Of course, there are more ways you can go in. There are certainly, like you've seen, more keying effects. You have more options in the Rotobrush, which we didn't get into today. But I feel like we made this in 15 minutes. So if you spend maybe a bit more time, maybe 16 minutes, I don't know, then you can achieve quite impressive results. And now you can see the hair is, there we go. Now it's back. Fantastic. And we can apply our favorite effects. And maybe even...
And again, with this being in motion, when that's playing, at the speed that things are playing, any sort of imperfections like that, they're really not going to be noticeable. It's only because we're looking at a paused frame that it actually does cause you to pixel peep and look at everything in minuscule detail.
And just trying some effects. You can really get some very interesting results using those effects. What is... no. I want to have like an echo of that person. Oh yeah, now there we go. That is. Yeah. It's very trippy now. You can see like multiple instances of the same. Anyway, it's like, yeah. Just having fun now.
So my question is, is there any way that you could sort of save some of these details as like a stackable preset of things, or thinking of like motion graphics templates? Is there any way that you can
Absolutely.
reuse
I'm glad you
these?
said that, because maybe as a final, very final, because we're at time, maybe as a final thing, let's just create one more composition of our good old friend Tony. There are some helpful animation presets, for some reason, which can combine those different effects we just had. And then, of course, I don't remember now where it is. I think it's on the background. And of course, it's in German. There you go. Thank you for that. There are some presets. I think we just look for spill. No. Plus. Yeah, there it is. I'm sorry, it's in German. It's supposed to say Keylight, key clean, and advanced spill suppression. There we go.
That is a long word. It's got a plot twist halfway through.
Advanced spill suppression. Yeah, apparently it is under image utilities. So this, if I apply this to the Tony layer, you will see it creates 3 effects. Keylight, key cleaner, and spill suppression, which is disabled by default, because if you enable that, you will turn the background gray, because it's trying to suppress the spill. So this can be a way for you to quickly get all the important effects in one, and I'm sure you could create your own presets if you wanted to.
Yeah.
To
Perfect.
properly make all that. So with that, we can maybe just pick the green and get, honestly, for just clicking, dragging, and doing one edit, that's quite good.
Yeah, I was just thinking, because it's lengthy process, but if you're doing this all the time, then yeah, compounding it into a preset for yourself is probably going to save you even more time in the future.
And this one ships with After Effects, by the way. So
Brilliant.
You already have it.
Perfect.
Oh dear, that's it. I'm done.
Well, well, Tim, thank you for running through that. It's yeah, definitely a lengthy process, but I mean, I remember back in the days when I was doing making thumbnails for games and all sorts, and you'd pull out a main character from the TV show, and they had to go onto the background. Everyone had flamboyant hair, and they were taken in front of bushes and trees, and it was a mess cutting out. But I got very good at it. So yeah, seeing time saved is well, it's a winner for anyone who's doing that now. So
Back in the day, it took ages, and now we can just do it live.
absolutely.
Boy, do I hate Chroma key. I hate that when it happens.
So thank you for running through that. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching this stream. We have one more stream for the UK this week on Friday. Liz is going to be going through some social media graphics for events, I believe. And then next week is Adobe Max Week. If you haven't already, then make sure you go and sign up for Adobe Max. There is a whole roster of presentations and all sorts happening. It's one of my most inspiring events that I've ever attended. And I always look forward to doing stuff. Of course, you can watch it all for free online, so you can go and sample anything and everything and watch on catch up. We will be back towards the back end of next week, doing some catch ups from Max, some live streams. Tim, looking forward to heading out to Munich and hanging out in person.
Yes!
That's going to be fun.
We'll be live in person from Munich with you and me and everyone talking about Max.
Yeah,
on Wednesday.
Absolutely. So yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. Thank you, Tim, and I guess we'll catch you later on.
See you soon, everybody. See you next week or on Friday for the Adobe Express stream. Bye bye.
Bye bye.